Hey, it's Patrick. I want to talk about a trick I stumbled upon recently regarding the maximum margins allowed within Rough Animator. As you might remember from an old video of mine, I talked about margins before, and there is a maximum margin size allowed within Rough Animator that doesn't allow the canvas size to go over 4096 pixels in either the width or the height. But there is a workaround, and I'll show you how to override this setting in today's video. I set a chapter marker to jump straight to the trick if you want to, but I wanted to review the reasons that margins exist within Rough Animator and how you can use them to animate some of your characters. So if that sounds good to you, let's get into it. So when you are starting a new project in Rough Animator, you're going to get this dialog box here. And this is where you're going to choose your camera size and your margin size. But before I get into this, I want to just show you I'm using the latest version of Rough Animator right now, 3.19. So when we open the program, we get this dialog. We can either open a project we've been working on or hit the new project, and we get this dialog box. So there's a few things to pay attention to. Usually when I'm working, I work at 1920 by 1080, which is 1080p resolution. But what we want to pay attention to today is this margins box here. And normally I keep these at 0 because I don't use the margins too often. But there are times when you do need to use the margins. And that's specifically if you're having things animating off of the canvas and then coming onto the canvas. Without having any margins, it's like impossible to do that. So if we need to add some margins, there's actually a restriction. And that's mainly what I want to talk about today. So if I'm going to type in, let's say I want, 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels on my margins, what that's going to do is it's going to take this 2000 and it's going to multiply it by 2. So it's actually 4000. And you take 4000 and you multiply, or you add that to 1920 and you get this 5920 number. Now I want you to pay attention to this number in a second when I talk about this. So we just added in some random margins to our project and I'm going to hit OK. But we get a warning, and the warning says alert, width must be between 1 and 4096. So this 4096 number, that's what we need to pay attention to. And so let's go ahead and come back here. And what we want to do is we want to get this canvas number here to be that 4096. And the same thing over here. So those both need to be 4096 or less for this to work. So how do we do that? Well, you do a little bit of math, but if you don't want to do math, I'm just going to give you the answer here real quick. So let me just hide Rough Animator. And normally, if I'm working at 1080p, here's our numbers here. We've got 1920 by 1080, and then we're going to add in a margin of 1088 on the left and 1508 on the right. And you'll notice that this is going to give us that 4096 number in our full canvas size. And so this will work. If we even go 1 pixel above that, it's not going to work. So take a screenshot of this. These are the numbers you need to remember for your margins for a 1080p canvas size or viewer size. The canvas size is going to be both combined. If you want to work in 4K, let me show you those numbers. You can only use 128 on the left and 968 on the right. So again, these are the numbers that you're going to want to screenshot if you want to work in 4K within Rough Animator. And again, it gives us that 4096 total canvas size. So I'm going to go ahead and show what those look like in Rough Animator when we add this in. So I'm going to go ahead and type in our predetermined numbers and show you what that canvas looks like. So 1088 on the left column and 1508 on the right. And again, we've got that 4096, and I'm going to hit OK. And again, this is a 1080p window here. So this white area, that's our viewer. That's the area that's going to be seen by the camera. That's our camera view. And everything in this gray on the outside of that camera view, that's our margin. And let me just zoom out if I can. I think I'm all the way zoomed out. This whole area here is our full canvas size. So that gives you an idea of what we're working with. So like say you had a character and you needed him to fly from this corner over to this corner, you would have that character start here off of the camera, and then you would animate it to go over here. And you need this gray area here to be able to see what you're doing outside of the camera viewer. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and let's show what the canvas will look like on a 4K project. So I'm going to hit New Project, and I'm going to change all my dimensions here. So let me just do that real quick. Okay, so 3840 on our width and 2160 on our height is going to give us a 4K camera. And then for the margins on this, we're going to use that 128 here, and we're going to use 968 here. And then it gives us that 4096 here in our canvas size. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. So you can see here, we get less of that gray area, especially here on the sides. So we have a lot less margin because the 4K here is a much bigger canvas. So this is our 4K canvas of our camera view, and again, this light gray is everything else, is our margins that we have to use. So depending on what you're trying to do, you may need to be working in a smaller format within Rough Animator, like 1080p, because 4K might not give you the margins that you need to animate your characters. So for instance, if I draw this ball here and I just want to move it off of the viewer and into our margin here, and I can still see this when it's within the gray. But if I try and move it over here and I let it go, now if I need to grab it again and move it back over, we lose all of our drawing that was off of the margin of our project. So we can't bring anything outside of this gray area to that side. So this dark gray is like no man's land. Like you can't bring your images there or it deletes the pixels. So with that being said, you might want to use 1080p because remember, we got a much larger gray, light gray margin area to use. Okay, so with all of that said, there's actually a workaround for this. So let me show you what that is. I'm going to close this project. Don't need to save that. And I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to intentionally make this go over 4096. So it doesn't matter what the number is. I'm just going to go 1 pixel over, and just on one side. So we're just barely going over. So now if I hit OK, we get that alert, right? So here's the trick that I found out, is if you just press and hold on OK, it's going to give you a new warning. Watch this. Press and hold. And now this time the alert says, bypassing restriction on project resolution may cause lag crashes. Continue at your own risk. So this is actually cool that this is built in so that, depending on your computer, you may be able to get away with having a larger margin size in your project. So let's go ahead and hit OK and see what this does. So we can't really see a difference here because it's so minor, but it is giving us this larger margin around the canvas. So let me actually go ahead and try this one more time. And I'm going to go pretty big on this. Let's go like 1,000. And I'll go 2,000 over here. So this should be way over, and we're going to have to press and hold We get that alert. We're going to hit OK. And depending on your computer, this may crash your computer. But now we're working within 4K and we've got a lot more margin here on our sides. And maybe this is just for one shot, get through it and then go back to the recommended margin size for your next shot. So I'm just going to do a quick test and show you how to animate something from the left side to the right side of the canvas. And we're going to do that in this over exaggerated file and hopefully we won't crash. So let's just go ahead and grab our brush. I'm just going to make a circle here and then I'm going to grab my lasso tool and I'm going to bring this off canvas here. And then I'm going to click to let it go. And then we're going to add a drawing after and we're going to make that a cycle. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some frames to that cycle here. Okay, and then with our cycle here made, I'm going to select on the end frame here by clicking up here. And now I'm going to change the X offset. And if I click and drag here, you can see it's going across the screen and I let go. And then when we go to the beginning and I hit play, we've got the ball going from one side of the frame to the other. So it's keyframing that for us. And again, we couldn't do this if we didn't have, this area of gray here outside of our viewer, our camera viewer here. So just keep that in mind if you need to do some keyframing of some characters or something that are going to come from off screen to on screen, that you're going to need to make sure that you have the correct margins figured out. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at what those numbers are again. Let me get rid of that. So if you're working with 4K, here's your numbers here, 128 and 968. And if you're working with 1080p, then your margins are going to be 1088 by 1508. So hopefully that helps, and just keep those numbers kind of stashed away somewhere so that you can reference them. But really the main number we need to remember here is this 4096, and it'll come up with that alert if you go over that. So hopefully those are a couple of tips that'll help you when you're using Rough Animator. My name's Patrick. Thanks for joining me today, and keep on animating. If you found this useful, click the thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe. Click this video for more animation tips. Leave any questions you have in the comments below. Thanks for watching and keep on animating.